This week's sponsor, you guessed it, Shop Show Me. Welcome to the embroidery room. Right, here we go. Just did a jacket for our friend Mr. Haig at Mexico High School. And just a little bit of what we do. So we are a print shop, embroidery shop in North Missouri, and we try to cover a very large area. But what we focus on is embroidery is something that we do, large format printing. So we make big banners, big signs. We do trailer wraps, any sort of big signage for your building, all the way down to yard signs for real estate or your favorite player signs, stuff like that. We've been here since 2013. It was formerly known as a different business. It was Kelly's Printing and Pedals. And we also the biggest part of our business is t-shirts. So we do t-shirts for any organization, from very small run orders of less than 10 up to thousands of shirts that we can handle for you. So if you're in the market for some customized, personalized gear, please reach out. It's office@shopshowme.com or message us on our Facebook page, which is Shop Show Me. So if you need anything, we're here for you.
That stuff matters, carved in stone, every stitch and every tone. Living, loving, grinding through all the nerdy things we do.
What's up, guys? Welcome to That Stuff Matters, your small town grit, big time conversations podcast. A bit of a special episode. We're gonna release on early this week. So normally we release on Fridays. And, we're covering the local places and people in our community. And a big part of any community is the high school sports. So when we just recently joined the GRC, I was immediately kind of shocked that there was a Facebook presence, a Twitter presence, someone who was doing weekly, the power polls. They did a full write-up of the history of their conference, and it was really unique. And you have the GRC and the GRC West, and there's a total of 18 teams. And I just didn't know much about it. Now, a lot of the teams in the GRC we're familiar with. We had played many of these teams long ago in the Tri-Rivers. And Marceline joining the conference with us made it even more interesting. So when there was all of this coverage, I didn't realize that was just someone who had taken it upon themselves about a decade ago when their daughter was in school, a school that had just joined the GRC. It was exciting that someone was covering all of the schools. And he really does a great job of sharing content for every school. I don't know how someone can devote that time to making sure they catch all that stuff and share. And he's trying to get to games all over North Missouri just to cover the kids. So it's really cool story. He reached out to us. Well, first of all, he kind of found me through the Quarterback Club page because we post a lot of the football updates. So he was sharing a lot of our content. And then he came to a game, I'm not sure. I think it was the South Harrison game. But he came, and that's when I met him. And he had saw a podcast episode I did with Jeff Elliott and Aaron Irby, who are the local radio hosts here in our area, and we're just so lucky to have them. And when he saw that, he said, hey, if you'd ever like to discuss the GRC, I'd be willing to do that. And I said, yeah, let's do that. And it was just a really cool conversation. We're getting ready to kick off sports here. This is going to be the first week of actual games. Last week was kind of that intro jamborees, whether you're into softball, volleyball, football, whatever it is. But this week we're kicking it off for real. And I thought, what better time to discuss Jeremy and the GRC and all he does, and just give you guys an opportunity. So if you have kids in sports in Brookfield or Marceline or any of the GRC conference schools, this is the guy. This is the guy that's traveling all over. He's trying to catch all that content and share. He's doing write-ups. He's contacting the coaches. And it's just really cool when someone's doing that, because we don't necessarily see the media coverage that we used to, many years ago. It's just different now. So anytime you have someone who's willing to devote time to the kids from all over and share about them and their accolades and all that they do, it's just really cool. So I hope you enjoy learning about the GRC and this week's guest, Mr. Jeremy Benson.
He's the GRC guy, he's got the eye. Through his viewfinder, the moments fly. Missouri's pulse, the heart, the sound. Jeremy Benson makes it all go round.
Welcome to That Stuff Matters, your small town grit, big time conversations podcast. And recently, Brookfield, where we are currently in my hometown, we joined a new conference for sports. And upon doing so, I was overwhelmed by the amount of content that on Facebook and Twitter and the social media, and I had no idea where it came from. And today we're going to meet that gentleman. Everyone say hello to Mr. Jeremy Benson. Jeremy?
Good to be here, Nathan.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Man, you are doing a lot. And I told you, I don't even know how you catch all of the posts from all the schools. You're sharing everybody's. Right. How many schools are in the GRC?
So there's two conferences right now, the GRC and the GRC West. There's 9 schools in each, so it's a total of 18 schools. So it's basically those 18 schools that I follow and cover.
Man, 18 schools.
Yes.
It's hard for me to keep track of what's going on at Brookfield.
Right.
So, and you do a really great job
of
sharing for everybody.
Thank you.
And then on top of that, you make it a point to travel to each school at least once. Is that what I heard you say?
That's a goal. Sometimes it's a little more difficult, but at least see every team. Whether it's football, basketball, I want to make sure that I get around to all the schools in the conference. Yes.
Man. And just so everyone knows, you're located in St. Joe.
St. Joe, Missouri, yes.
Okay. But your hometown, where's your hometown at?
I grew up in Monroe City, Missouri, so Brookfield fans will be very familiar with Monroe City in the years in the Clarence Cannon Conference. That's where I grew up, went to high school there, and then went to St. Joe in 1990 when I went to college at Missouri Western and met my wife there, and we were at college there. We lived in Iowa for a couple of years and Nebraska for a year after we were married, but moved back to the area after that and have been in the St. Joe area now for, almost 30 years. It's a little less than 30. Yeah.
Wow. So you're a Panther at heart.
Yes. I still root for Monroe City. Yes.
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
We had some good years in the Clarence Cannon, but that's a tough conference.
Yes, very much so.
And that conference is like, you've got a wide, like some schools continue to get bigger and then some are down there and still that smaller size. But with that being said, like when I think of South Shelby or Monroe, I mean, it's not like they're not competitive in that conference.
Yeah, South Shelby's really come up in football the last few years. Monroe City's, interestingly, they've been good in football pretty much since I was in high school. My freshman year, they were 0-10, and then they went 8-2 the next year, and then went unbeaten in the regular season the next 2 years. Got beat in the postseason, so didn't make it to state. But they ended up going to state several times in the 90s and won a couple state championships. So they have a tradition of football, and they've done very well in other sports as well. Yeah.
Is that where your love of sports began?
Yes, I played in junior high, but I didn't play in high school. But I played basketball in junior high. I went out for football and decided that's not for me. I wasn't going to be a football player, but I did play basketball in junior high. When I got to high school, my class was really athletic. If you remember Michael Washington, Tommy Jackson, those guys, they were very good class. And so I didn't make it in basketball, but I was the manager for a couple of years. I did stats for them as well for a couple of years. But I've loved sports ever since I can remember. Back, I would say probably 81 is probably when I first started going to games. I remember Monroe City in 82. The girls played Knox County and Hannibal. and got beaten double overtime, and I was devastated.
Oh.
It was, and of course, my mom said, there's going to be losses here. You're not going to win all the time. But I was devastated because at that time I was used to him winning games, but it just grew a love for me for sports. I just wanted to be around it. I wanted to be involved in high school sports. Back before the internet, I actually would try to gather information on all the conferences, whatever way I could. I knew every team in the state of Missouri, at least in football. It was most of them in basketball. I knew what conference they were in. I knew, and I just followed it so closely. And it's just been a love and passion of mine.
And just stuck with you.
Yes.
And then you had, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids.
Did they play sports?
They played a little bit when they were younger. None of them played in high school. My oldest son, he played baseball a little bit. My younger 2 played soccer, and my daughter also did a little bit of basketball and volleyball. I say that she did play volleyball 1 year in high school. So it was, but she also was a cheerleader.
Cheerleader.
So I was going to the games when she was a cheerleader in high school, and that's really where I started kind of picking it back up a little. Going to the high school, I would go to some of theirs when they were in grade school, but I didn't go to as many high school, kind of the time when they were younger. But when she got back into high school, I started going to a lot more high school games as well.
Okay. And I don't pretend to know the GRC and the history of it, but I was doing a little bit of research, and it looked like it was St. Joe Christian, right? Is that what it is?
Correct. That's where my daughter was a cheerleader at.
Okay. And did they join the GRC in 2016?
2016. So in 2016, there were 6 teams that joined the GRC. So there were 10 teams in the GRC, and they added 6 teams that year to go to 16. The main motivation for that is they really had 7 11-man schools and 3 8-man schools at the time. But King City and Bramer, who's no longer in the conference, but Bramer, we're talking about going to 8-man. So that would have put 5 11-man and 5 8-man in the conference. And so they really wanted to look what they could do to basically have a 8-man conference and 11-man conference in football. And of course, it extended to other sports too. So they invited Putnam, Milan, and Trenton for 11-man. They invited St. Joe Christian, North Andrew, and Pattonsburg for the 8-man. And so that's really how the divisions came up. And so because those were the
all
8-man,
that year,
that was all in 2016.
So that was a big year.
Yes. And so the 8-man schools were in what was called the West. The 11-man schools are what was called the East. And it was mostly geographic. I mean, there's a few small differences, but it was mostly geographic. The East schools were the bigger schools.
So, so when were you going to your daughter and watch cheerleading?
I would go to
Around
every
the same time.
It was the same time. That was her senior year of high school. So I'd been going to the games the last few years. Yes.
It was like the height of your high school, following her around, and then Dad going crazy in the GRC.
So I would go to every basketball and football game. I occasionally would go to others, but it was mainly basketball and football that I was going to at the time. I may have missed a few games here and there, but I was pretty much at every single basketball and football game during that time for St. Joe Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
So you had that was your daughter's senior year. Did you start to, when did you think, okay, I'm going to keep following this around and cover every sport? That had to take a lot of time.
It was an evolution. So really how it started is when they announced the conference. So they broke them into 2 divisions, but they announced there was going to be a what I would call a crossover game. So each of the teams in the conference, so there were 8 teams in both divisions. The number 1 teams in each one would play each other. The number 2 teams would play each other, and so on. And so at the end of the year, they would have this crossover event. It was a really popular event. One of my favorite days of the year when they had it, and I'm a little disappointed they don't have it anymore. But so I started keeping track of scores. And also football, I was keeping track of scores. I was actually doing a little bit more than the GRC, but I was keeping track of the scores for the GRC. And I started posting all these scores on Twitter. But I wanted mainly do it so I could just just track how the other teams were doing
Mm-hmm.
in the conference, and then at the end of the year in these crossover games, who trying to figure out who is playing. I would give scenarios out on Twitter at the time, but this was just my regular Twitter account. I would post the scores, and then people would start tagging me with scores, especially the GRC scores, and some
What
people.
was your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is Hoops Tournament, and there's a reason behind that. I actually have a website called hoopstournament.net. We can get into
Oh.
that another time. It's a NCAA tournament website,
Okay.
and so that was my Twitter handle at the time. And so, but I just got to be known as the GRC guy. I would be posting scores. I kept a spreadsheet at the time of all of the standings and everything. And so anytime I wanted to know what the scores were, because I was asking about the scores, so people would just start tagging me in those scores. So it really helped me at that time when people were doing that, because gathering scores wasn't easy. I at the time, the news press in St. Joe was still active, and I could get some scores there. So I wasn't getting them the day of the games, but I was getting them soon enough to track things as well.
Man, so people were probably looking for you online, and then it was like, where's the GRC guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible, really.
Yeah. So I during that year, I started thinking, I had this other website that I'd mentioned, and I started thinking, because people did ask me questions. They would ask me questions about how teams were doing. I would post standings every once in a while. And I thought, I should just build a website. I basically took my existing website that I had. I used a lot of the code and structures on it. At the time, the website, the first one, was not near as nice as the one now, and I can go into that as well.
Mhm.
But I basically had a program where I would compile everything and then post it on the website. But it was kind of a manual process, and so I was only doing basketball and football at that time when I first started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, so it was just a gradual process, and like
Right.
you didn't even realize you were becoming the GRC guy until
No.
someone gave you that nickname.
No, I think it was really when the GRC decided just to shut down their website and make mine the unofficial official website. And everybody would point to that one instead of the one that they had. Theirs had some information on there about the schools, but nothing about the history of the games or anything like that. It was just more of a, maybe 3 or 4 pages on it. And so they ended up shutting it down, and because I was doing all this stuff on the website.
Yeah. Do they still have a website?
No, they don't. Yeah,
So, because there's grandriverconference.com,
right.
and then there's your blog site. Are those all ran by you?
They're run by me. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the social media, the website, the blog, I did a podcast for a little bit. I'm not doing that right now. All of those things are run by me.
Okay. Now, what is your current day job?
My current day job is I'm the vice president of financial planning analysis and capital management and expense management for a company called Sun Life. And so that's my day job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, how do you balance the day job with that?
I usually get up early in the day. I try to work no more than a 10-hour day. That doesn't happen every time, especially when we're doing financial reporting at the end of the quarter. There's some heavier work days, but I have a lot of good people that work for me. I've had a manager a long time ago tell me that you need to be good at delegating, and I've gotten really good at delegating.
Yeah.
And
I struggle with that.
yeah, yeah, a lot of people do. And so I have good people on my team that are really talented, and so I have to be faced with some of the bigger issues, some of the bigger decisions, things like that. I have to review some of their work, meet with them, but really I would say the detailed work, I have people on my team doing. I'm not doing it myself.
That's good
Yeah.
to hear,
Yeah.
because that affords you the time to. I can't imagine trying to check the schedules for 18. Those you said 18 teams?
18 schools, yes, and yes.
So you've got to know, like, for the week. Do you have like a big calendar that shows all? who
Yes,
plays
I
where?
do. I have I actually have the schedules on my website right now for football and softball. I'm working on basketball. I don't have it on the website yet, but because there's still a few that I don't know. I start with Misha. So Misha has their games, but the schools don't always put all their games in there. So I have to supplement it from other sources.
Mhm.
So a lot of times I'll know like some of the tournaments that they're going to be in, and I'll ask around. I know some of the shootouts they're going to be in. And so as I start going through, I start with that. I'll maybe go to the school's website, but during the summer I start building out the schedules. And so right now, the schedules that I have on there are for I would call the five main team sports: uh, football, softball, boys basketball, girls basketball, and baseball. And so those are the main ones. But I still have some information about some of the other sports as well on there.
Okay. And just so people realize, so he's currently from St. Joe
Hmm.
since the 90s.
Right.
And for example, last night we had the Jamboree, and Brookfield played at Putnam County with Putnam County, South Harrison, Brookfield, and Kirksville. So three of the four schools are GRC
Right.
schools. He drives to Putnam to Unionville,
Hmm.
and he's there taking photos on the sideline. And then today is the softball jamboree
Right.
at Brookfield, and that just worked out perfectly. We could get him to come in here. So that is 2 4. You've already just between last night and this morning, you drove 6 hours,
Right.
and you got another 2 hours home.
About an hour and a half.
Hour and a
back to-
half.
yeah, back to. But yeah, it's. I would say in total, I'll be on the road probably 7.5 hours in the last 2 days. Yes.
So some of my questions were like, because you've been in the GRC for so long,
Right.
are there some like rivalries that you like look forward to each year that you want to go to those games?
So this is before Brookfield Marceline, so I'll caveat that there's some good rivalries. Milan Putnam County is a good one. And then on the GRC West side, I would say you've kind of got a triangle between Stanberry, Albany, and King City. They have some good rivalries. They're in the same county and they're all together. Sometimes the rivalries though are just more of like who's the top teams in
Sure.
there. But those have really been the rivals. Stanberry, Worth County, North Andrew have kind of had a football rivalry with each other. They've been the top teams in the conference. Although every school at least in the GRC West has at least been to the state semifinals, except for one in the past since the GRC. And so it's a really strong conference. I mean, it's a really strong conference for every sport. Softball is so good, but when you say the best rivalry, and this is not because I'm on the show with you, it's Brookfield Marceline. I mean, I have not been to a game that I've seen so many people to, so much fanfare. And I did a research. So, if you go to the blog, you'll see an article I did on the Bell game last year. But it is such an amazing rivalry. And it extends to other sports too. I mean, I saw wrestling. The wrestling fans at Brookfield are crazy.
Yeah.
I've not seen that anywhere else at wrestling fans. And so with wrestling, softball, with a pink out game every year, it's just a really good rivalry.
Yeah. I love Marceline. I really do. I mean, they're great people. I worked over there for decades, but when we play them, it's like we just hate each other.
Yeah.
And you finish the game and you're like, all right, well, see you tomorrow at work or
Yeah.
whatever. But I feel there are some great rivalries across the
Mhm.
state, but it's got to be right up there at the top, just because we're smaller and you do get so much fanfare, people showing up. Was last year your first Bell game or?
Last year was my first Bell game. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been to Marceline. Now are you gonna come back this year to the Brookfield
I would
version?
like to. There's some circumstances that could make it difficult, and the reason why is that now I assume that by the time this podcast is out, I will have the coaches polls out too, which I'm releasing tomorrow as we talk. Worth County and King City are the top two teams in the 8-man side, and there's a good chance they will both be unbeaten and probably ranked in the
Oh,
top 5 that
that
same
same week.
night. Yes, which will be the last game of the year.
So we're gonna have to hold up our end of the bargain and be close to undefeated
Right.
if we want the GRC guy there.
Yeah, when I'm looking at my schedule, that right now is on my schedule, the one that I'm going to have the toughest decision
Yeah.
to do.
So, I just want to pull some thoughts from your mind as far as when When did you first hear that the GRC was expanding again and that Brookfield and Marceline were coming to the GRC?
So this would have been, gosh, I think it was 2021, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was December of 2021. And so I had heard some rumors about it. And what kind of the reason why I believe it happened is at the time, Princeton was looking to go to 8-man in football. They wanted to move to the GRC West, and they were in the East. They wanted to move to the GRC West, and so that would put 9 schools in the West and 7 schools in the East. And so the conference started thinking about, do we want to add 2 new schools to balance them out? And so I started to hear rumors. Of course, I have a lot of contacts in the GRC, and started to hear rumors that Marceline and Brookfield were being invited to the conference. It became official in that December, and so at that time I started researching more about Brookfield and Marceline to understand them. Of course, I was familiar with both schools when I was at Monroe City as well, and we didn't play them as much when I was in high school. But as I followed Monroe City over the years, they played both Marceline and Brookfield, and so I was familiar with the communities. I've driven through Marceline or past Marceline and through Brookfield many times in my life, going back to Monroe City. And so, so it's something that's really familiar, but it was something that, I started getting excited about these 2 schools because I thought it would be some really, really neat schools to go to in the conference. So they were invited to the conference, but the next spring, they announced that the 2 conferences were splitting up. And so Brookfield and Marceline were never in the big conference. They're only in what's called the Grand River Conference now. And then the other side became the Grand River Conference West.
Now, was the expansion or the addition of more teams part of the reason why it split?
I think it probably was a contributing factor. The year before, the East won every single game in the I think it was on the boys' side of the crossover, and some of the West schools felt that they were just not competing against these schools. They would have in track all 16 teams come to a track meet, and some of the schools felt like they didn't have a shot. I mean, they win their division, but winning the conference championship, there were a lot more bigger East schools that were winning the conference. And so really a lot of this was, I think the West teams just wanted to compete against teams that were in their size. And the logistics of the conference started getting pretty big. I mean, when you now had 18 teams that were going to be part of the conference, there were some of them that just said, I don't think this is right for us. So they broke up, and hopefully there's some contention. I'm not going to get into the contention, but hopefully things will get better, and they'll work together in the future on some things as well.
Yeah, I mean, could you see some more crossover events, in basketball or sports like that, softball?
I would love to have crossover events. I think right now there's still a little bit of sting from the breakup. Like any breakup, there's always some sting. But I think something like an all-star game. You could do it in Trenton, or you could do it at Bethany, a place that's kind of centrally located. Just an all-star game where you have the best players from both, come and play. Something like that. You could probably do it for softball. You could probably do it for baseball. Football would be a little bit more difficult, I think. But I just think that these would be great things to do, just because they have this shared tradition.
Yeah, for sure. I can just say that we loved the Clarence Cannon.
Right.
It's a great conference. Obviously very competitive. A lot of talent. But we love being a member of the GRC. It's been exciting. It brings back some memories for me of the Tri-Rivers Conference.
Right.
There's a few of us that used to be in that conference that are there now. Geographically, I love it. I feel like the schedule is a lot less traveling than driving to Cahokia or some of the schools we were going to. So, and it's still very competitive. So far, I have heard no negatives from anyone here in Brookfield or Marceline.
No, I mean, almost every school has won multiple conference championships, obviously for Brookfield Marceline, but Brookfield Marceline won conference championships last
Yeah,
year.
year one.
In year one, but every school has won a conference championship in something in the past few years.
Yeah,
It's something where every one of them has shot. Now you've got some schools that are going to be pretty good this year, like South Harrison in a lot of sports, but Brookfield's going to be right up there when it comes to wrestling.
Mhm.
Brookfield is probably the standard in the conference at the moment, but there's just lots of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, we are a wrestling community.
Mhm.
My kid had wrestled. My nephews have wrestled. My daughters play basketball. I'm a basketball guy,
Right.
but I love wrestling. I love the sport, and that is the youth here. They have the best facility for
Mhm.
that. I don't know if you've watched our Blue Pride wrestling episode, but um, it's just really fortunate what they have, and I've watched it grow from, you know, they were in the basement of the school to
Yeah.
a building uptown to now they have their own facility, and we're talking turf and a full weight room and
Right.
saunas, and we're a wrestling community, so that is
Yeah.
for sure what we bring to the conference. Football is right up there for us,
Mhm.
but you know, with every sport, you go through these like waves and
Right.
ups and downs, and um, you like to see your conference have a bit of a, you don't want the same team to win every year,
Right. Yeah.
or it kind of loses its fun.
It gets a little boring. Well, it's like when the conference first expanded and they broke them up into divisions, Trenton won a lot in the first few
Mm.
years. And so there were some people who were thinking, is Trenton just going to dominate this conference? And what's interesting is Trenton was the only school last year that did not win a conference championship in anything out of the
You
on
just
the
never know.
GRC
See,
side. Yeah. So it has its ebbs and flows and balances out.
yeah, I think that's just the nature of small town
Right.
communities, and you get those waves of. A lot of times, what I see is like you'll have like a really successful span of years,
Right.
and when those kids are old enough to have kids, it's like you see
It
that
happens again. Yes.
So
Yeah.
really cool. Let me get caught up here. Okay, so you were following your daughter. You started doing all the Twitter.
Right.
When did you realize, oh man, there's a need for this? I need to expand it, and I need to have, um, social media pages specifically for the
Yeah.
content, and I need to have the website. Like, was it like one thing after another that this came to you?
It was. I mean, I started the Twitter account for the GRC. So instead of using my personal one, I started the one for the GRC. And then I would say probably a little less than a year after that, I started the Facebook account. And Facebook, I think, is really where people started noticing it. You really have in Facebook, you have, I would say about 2/3 of my followers are mothers of the
Mhm.
athletes. And then you have the rest. I mean, their dads are too, but the moms, they really want to see coverage of their kids. And so I started getting a lot of feedback. They started asking, say, when am I going to do other sports? I remember a time where they asked me, why am I not doing wrestling?
Mm.
and so I just started following other sports. So I added softball as one that I followed, and I post the scores every day on the Facebook page now, and on the other social media, but Facebook's where most people see them. And so I started posting the scores. Um, at first, it was just like, here's just a list of the scores. Later, I started adding graphics. My daughter helped me with that. She's
Mhm.
very good at that type of stuff. So I started adding graphics for the scores. But so we expanded it to softball, and then baseball became a conference sport in 2019. And so I started that from the start. But I was not covering like the individual sports as much, and so people were asking me to do that. So what I did is I started covering what I call the big events, and I would write. So I'd write articles about the conference meets. I'd write articles about district. I'd write articles about state, and so this is really when I started doing the blog. I thought, okay, how can I cover the other sports? Because it wasn't as easy to do that. Covering track and field and wrestling and golf, and they are a lot different than covering the team sports, because team sports, you have a score for one team, a score for another team, a winner and a loser. You don't have that in the other ones. You could finish up second or third or fourth, and it's a very good. You didn't win, but it was a very good result. But it was individuals competing against each other. So I started the blog, and it's evolved over time, the things that I've been doing. But that's where I started writing a lot of the stuff about them. And then I went back and I researched a lot of the history, and have been putting like individual state champions on the website. I've got most of the conference champions. There's still a few I haven't found, but I did research on the conference champions, so I got that for every sport. And so all that information is on there, along with if you ever want to read about the history of the GRC, there's a page on the website too that just goes through the entire history of the GRC.
Yeah, I was on there. I was
Yeah.
reading it up. From what did it say? It officially started somewhere around the 30s.
1929 is when it was established. 1930 was the first game.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's almost coming up on the 100th anniversary.
What? So you've spent a lot of time digging through the archives,
Right.
Calling people, emailing people, I'm assuming.
Most of it was newspapers. The good thing is back then newspapers covered everything.
Yeah.
And there was so much information on newspapers I was able to find, and it really helped me with that. More recent history, it's talking to some people, but back in there there were newspaper articles that were very detailed, and it was something that was very fascinating going through.
Well, I say quite a bit, media coverage is different now.
Right.
And you just don't go home every day and find the newspaper or pick it up in the morning and read through it. So, that was one of the reasons that, I kind of started this, was to bring some coverage to local
Right.
places. Maybe they don't get it. So that's just a lot of work
Yes.
that you're doing. Are there days where, like, there's got to be days where you don't feel good or something comes
Oh, yes.
up, and
There is.
do you then feel like you're letting people down because you didn't get the coverage the way you?
Sometimes I do, but then I realize, I'm doing quite a bit, and so, there's days where I'm going to not do as much, but I try to be as fair to all the teams, cover them all. I've had some fans that tell me I don't, but those fans you just have to kind of ignore and move on. But I've also done some things. I talked about my website early on was it was very manual work, and so I actually over break one year I went and I took a web design course that so it basically taught how to get data in there and build dynamic pages. So the way you see it now is where if you go on the standings, they go to their scores, schedules, things like that. That after I get the standings in there, it's like I just update them once a day. I push some buttons and it gets loaded to the website.
Simplified.
Yeah, so it's much simpler. Where I was actually adding scores in early years, I was adding scores manually to the website, and it wasn't sustainable in doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to find a way to simplify a process.
Right.
I mean, you should always be doing that. So that's pretty remarkable that you did all that work. So like, what are your like visions for this page and the process? Like, do you want to grow it or change it in any way over the next few years?
I think evolve. There's things I want to add in there, and I always get input from others as well, and what we might put in there. But I want it to evolve. Like, one of the things I've been thinking about doing is adding volleyball. This year will be the first time that the GRC has actually had a official volleyball event since the 50s.
Oh, wow.
And so there's going to be there's 4 schools in the GRC that play volleyball. St. Joe Christian plays it in the west side, but they're the only one that does in the west side. But the 4 schools in the GRC, they're going to meet for a round robin tournament, basically to crown a champion. I'm not sure whether it's an official champion or it's an unofficial champion, but I'm going to call it the champion for volleyball. And so one of the things that I've thought, I really don't put out the volleyball scores every day. I don't do that as well. So that's one of the things that I'm looking at adding is volleyball to it too. I want to see how that goes. The other one,
Is there a source that you go pull these scores from? Like,
So when most of the time the scores, a lot of people post on Twitter the scores, or I can go to the live streams. Every once in a while, I can't find a score for a certain game, so then I'll email the AD or text the AD, asking for information. Sometimes I don't get that right away, and then I have some friends in the media that also might get some of the scores too. So I'll ask them. So every night, it's my goal before I go to bed. Every night is to have every score for that day's games posted. Um, Sometimes I get them wrong, and then people immediately respond
they're
and say
quick
this
to
is
do that,
wrong.
aren't they?
Yeah, so it's a good check there to do that. I only remember one time where I was like, okay, I can't get this score, and I'm falling asleep, and I'm not going to post it. I'm just going to wait till the next morning. And there's some times where I've been busy, where I haven't had a chance to do it. There's times I might get home really late from a game. I'll say I'll do it tomorrow, and I may just post something saying I'm going to post these tomorrow. But for the most part, it's a goal to have them every night.
I know with football, I follow. Oh, what's the app? It's like Score Stream.
So ScoreStream has some of them too. Yes, yeah.
But do they do that with other sports? I never pay attention.
Yeah, they do it with other sports, but that's somebody has to actually sign up on ScoreStream to
Yeah.
post those scores. So it just depends on the school whether they have somebody that does that.
Yeah. That's so I update scores a lot of times for the Brookfield on there,
Right.
but it's kind of weird because if multiple people are in there at the same time, you will like both try to post a score and then
Okay.
it gets messed up and then you're trying to like say no, that score's
Yeah.
wrong, and so yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you, in your opinion, maybe witnessed or saw your coverage impact those people like personally? Like, have they came up and just thanked you or?
Yes, all the time. I have people coming and thanking me. Um, it's really surreal. I didn't get into this. I got into it because I just wanted to follow the games and keep track of them. But it really has developed into something where this is more of it's a calling, and something that I've just been called to do. And knowing how much it impacts people, that's probably been the most rewarding thing about the whole endeavor.
Oh yeah, I hearing your origin story there, how you're just posting scores on Twitter,
Right.
and it's grown into this, and as we said, you really don't get a lot of the same media coverage. When I was growing up, like if you got your picture in the newspaper, you're just famous for the
Right.
week. There's that feeling,
Yes.
and you're really providing that same sort of feeling for kids now,
Right.
in a much larger. You got 18 teams. It's much larger coverage of Missouri. So, in your opinion, because you've been around, you've seen all sorts of conferences across
Right.
the state. Do you feel like the GRC is special?
It's one of the top. Now, I also have a special place in my heart for the Clarence Canyon Conference as
Sure.
well, growing up in that. But there's, when I did some of the history, at the time when I first did this history, I found there's been over 50 state champions of schools in the GRC. I think it's up to 53 now. It is really deep in tradition. Track and field has been a really big sport. Softball and now wrestling are probably the top sports right now. But it is just steeped in tradition. What was interesting now, last year, none of our teams made it to the state semifinals in football. That was the first time since the early 80s that no current GRC or GRC West team was in the state semifinals.
What
There
a
were
run!
like 40 straight years of having at least one school.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of tradition in these sports and a lot of good schools. And the other thing, I mean, although I'll hear some people talk about rivals and badmouth rivals and things like that, but it is a community. When you're in a conference, it's a community of people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because you're usually, as a parent, you're going to these places a couple times a year
Right.
if you have played multiple sports, and they're coming to yours. So
Mhm.
you start to know people and
Right.
and people from their community. So yeah, I definitely would agree with you there. Um, man, let's see here. Get caught up. So have you, because you started so early, have you really watched how social media has changed coverage?
Yes.
And does that just kind of dwarf, in your opinion, the newspaper and radio coverage?
Newspaper, radio coverage still has some pockets, and I think that are good. Although with uh, Quick and Cress and Can and all them that were owned by Alpha Media going away, that put a hole in
Mhm.
my opinion in the radio coverage. And there's some organizations like Nemo Press Box is started to give coverage, and so there's still some there, but that was one of the things I really enjoyed about it. Listen to those pregame shows on
Yeah.
the way to on the way to the game, and listening to the postgame shows on the way home. Those are things that I really miss with those radio going out. Newspaper's a different story. While radio, there's still some pockets. I'm finding newspaper coverage, unless it's like a small town newspaper that's dedicated to one school or a couple schools, is really fallen off. There's just not an appetite in the newspaper industry to cover sports at the level it was covered
Mhm.
just 10 years ago.
Yeah. That I would agree with that. I mean, and it's sad because, you know, you just hate for those kids to not have that feeling
Right.
of getting that recognition.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be sports. It can be, you know, education related or
Right.
whatever organization. It's just sad to see that going away.
Yeah.
And I always say the same thing. Like, we're lucky here because we have the local radio station. Our rival has their local
Right.
radio station, and there's a lot of coverage in that regard. But if it ever stopped, you're really gonna miss it.
Right. Yes.
So, yeah, you just got to get out and support them, I guess, with ads.
Yes.
Now, with that being said, your coverage, people can support just the same, and you do sell ad space
Correct.
for.
Yes.
Tell me about the ads you offer.
So I basically, I have different things that I do every year. For each of the sports, I'll put a daily scored schedules out. I'm better at putting the scores out. Sometimes I don't get the schedules out right away, but we'll have sponsors for those. So basically, what you'll see is a graphic that has the scores, and then we'll have the logos of the businesses that sponsored them. I'm also this year. I did it for football and basketball. Started with baseball last year, but I'm all the sports this year. I'm doing a coaches poll, or all the team sports. I'm doing a coaches poll, and then a weekly updated power poll. And each of those have a sponsor. You're the sponsor of the GRC
Mhm.
football.
Yeah, thank you.
So basically, I have sponsors for those, and there's some other sponsors. The other big ones I have is I do a team of the week and a player of the week, and so I have sponsors for those as well.
Awesome.
To sponsor the team of the week and player of the week as well.
Really cool. Again, just cool coverage.
Yeah.
With the coaches poll and the power poll, so do you have to reach out weekly to the coaches?
No, I reach out at the beginning of the season for the coaches poll, and so that's really the start of it.
Mm-hmm.
Some coaches are a little easier to get a hold of than others, but or get information. But so I have that as the starting point, and then what I do is I basically will update based on my opinion. I do have some others that if I'm not sure, I will ask about and have them give me their opinion on where I think I should rank these teams.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, I've never had anybody complain that I did it last year for a few sports. I think I did it the year before for football, and never had anybody complain about where I put the teams. So
Oh,
I must be doing something
there
right,
you
because
go.
I've had complaints about other things, but not that.
Well, I'm sure if you had someone ranked where they didn't feel was right, they would let you know.
Yeah, I try to be objective. I don't just say, well, whoever won the last week moves up and whoever lost the last week moves down. I try to look at who they've played the year, where they were compared to where they were at the beginning, and who they've played so far. So I look through all of that to see, what makes sense to me.
Wow, that's again a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, like, what do you think of the spread of mascots in the GRC? Like, do you have a favorite mascot? I'm not saying like a favorite team, just like a
Yeah.
favorite
There's
character.
a lot of bulldogs.
A lot of bulldogs.
Well, I remember one time I was listening to a coach's show, and Kyle Ross from Polo said, "Yeah, I've got my bulldog part of the schedule," and he had 3 straight bulldog teams on the schedule coming up. So, and that was before Brookfield joined. So I thought, well, when Brookfield joins, you got another bulldog
Yep.
you can play there as well. So almost half the teams in the GRC side are bulldogs. There's one bulldog on the GRC West side, Stanberry. I like a lot of the mascots. The most interesting to me is the midgets.
Yeah.
Definitely at Putnam County. They're definitely an interesting mascot, and not without controversy
Right.
for their name. So that's a really interesting one. I can't say I really have a favorite on any of them. I have there's Panthers in the conference, and I grew up as a Panther. The St. Joe Christians, the Lions. I've had kids that go to school there. I had kids that went to mascots with Cardinals, and there's just a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it's something where I get vested in these teams. It's really interesting, especially when you get to postseason. It's like when one of the GRC teams loses, it kind of hurts me as much as
Oh,
the
yeah.
fans, because I'm following the entire year.
And it's got to be fun for you because now you don't like have a child, or
Right.
so you're just rooting for a team based on how well they've played. Maybe
Right.
there's a unique story about that team for the year.
Mhm.
And I bet you do really start to root for a lot of different teams every
Right.
year.
Yeah. What's interesting is I'll go to games between GRC teams, and people will ask me, who am I rooting for this game? And I'm saying, I'm rooting for both teams. I'm not picking sides on it. Now, when it comes to playoffs, I might want a team to win over another just because I think they have a better chance at going to state.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'd like to see from these teams.
Do you have like over all those years, have there been some like incredible performances from athletes that just stand out?
Yeah, and to me, and I said this right after the game, and I was even calling Clifton Grooms and Brett Kennedy right after the game. Again, I said you should have come to this game because you missed it. Last year when Princeton played Green City in the girls district championship game, one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen. At halftime, Princeton was down a couple points. Addie Hinkie, who was their all-time leading scorer, had 1 point at halftime. She ended the game with 30.
Wow.
And they were down. I'm getting chills just talking about this, but they were down like 10 points with 2 minutes left, and came back and won the game.
Oh man.
And it was just an absolutely electric
And
environment.
she just had to be on fire.
Oh, she was. I mean, I think she scored all their points in the third quarter, and she just refused to let them lose that game. It was absolutely amazing.
Man.
So
What was the atmosphere like because you were at the game, right?
I was at the game. It was at Grundy County. It's a little gym that's, and it was loud. It was ruckus. Now it's loud there. Now the loudest gym I've ever been in. So I think back to another game. This was Princeton and Gilman City, who's not in the conference. It was at Gilman City's gym. And so I was at this game. Loudest I've ever heard a place in my life. It was like it was just reverberating. And Gilman City hit a shot at the buzzer to send it to overtime and then ended up winning the game. And the fans were just going crazy. It was absolutely wild.
Man, I'm just trying to envision for you because you can somewhat, pick and choose,
Right.
go to the best games
Mhm.
all the time. So you're probably getting to see, more of those scenarios than most of
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's some pretty good ones I've gone to. Yeah.
What was the loudest football?
Loudest football. That's interesting. Football, because it's outside, it's not, it
Mhm.
doesn't seem like there's as loud. I mean, the Brookfield Marceline game last year was pretty loud, at least early. I don't think it
Mhm.
was loud late after
Yeah.
Brookfield. I'm trying to think of what the loudest football that's got to be up there. I can't think of any other game that I really have gone to that I've heard really loud crowds of.
Well, you
football.
just hear that bell the entire game,
Yeah.
too. Yeah, really cool. So, if you could, let me go back here. If you could go back in time and you could
Mm-hmm.
talk to yourself in 2016, what advice would you give that guy?
Sometimes I think is should I tell myself to do this? because it is a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah.
but it is a passion of mine. What's interesting, by the time summer comes around, I'm ready for the summer. I'm ready for a break. I'm ready to just, because I do have to do some things in the summer to get ready for the next season, but I'm ready for it to be a little lower pace. But I was so hyped to go to a game yesterday. I was
Mhm.
ready. I wanted to go to a game, come this morning. I wanted to take pictures. I just wanted to start seeing people again. And so, it's something that I love doing, but just when I know there's a lot of work, so I need the break sometimes.
Yeah.
But I would say that, I probably would have done photography sooner. I only started doing photos the last 2 years. That's one of the things I would, if I could tell myself, is do that sooner, because I think what I found is photography is one of the people's favorite things. They want to see the pictures of their kids, and I'd be much better at it now than if I would have started 10 years ago instead of 2 years ago.
Well, I know as just a parent, when you see people down there with cameras, you just really appreciate that
Mhm.
because you're it's not easy.
No.
I mean, people don't realize you got because it gets dark and you got the lights,
Oh
and
yeah.
every field has different lighting, and is it lit well? And you start to introduce, noise into the photos, and
Right.
it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm constantly adjusting my camera. Even this morning, because of the clouds, it was cloudy, and then the clouds went away, and then the clouds came back, and the clouds went away. I have to keep constantly check it. I had a track meet at Milan, the GRC track meet a few years ago. I guess it was 2 years ago because I started 2 years ago. But uh, I got home and I started going through the pictures, and the last three events were all black because
Mm.
I was getting so invested in the meet, I forgot to check my camera
Check your
settings.
settings.
Yes.
That's something that I imagine we'll see is cameras will have enough AI features that
Mhm.
it will probably automatically adjust some of those
Yeah,
settings.
there are cameras. Matt Anderson had one at the game last night, and let me see it, that you can actually adjust to that. It was a really nice camera, not my budget, but it's a really nice one.
Yeah, like I said, when I walked in, you could see his new lens, and
Yeah,
the lens must be over 18 inches long. I mean,
yeah.
it's. I can't wait to see the pictures.
The one I have is pretty heavy. It's 100 to 400 millimeter, and it's
Yours,
it's heavy enough. And his was probably twice as big. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You had a big lens as well, and then you had Matt out there, and I'm anxious to see. He already took great pictures, so
Hmm.
we're really fortunate to have Matt. Matt will jump on a bus and go to a random
Yeah.
JV game, a random whatever it is. And sometimes I'm like, Matt, you're gonna have to take a night
Yeah.
off. So, but we are really fortunate that he's there. So I know people feel the same for that when you're there as well. Um, man, is there anything that we haven't covered about the GRC? Did we miss something?
You got most of it. I know, a lot of people know the Facebook. I don't think as many people know that I have the website, and I try to have a lot of information on the website. It's grandriverconference.com if
Mm-hmm.
you want to go there. I, I sometimes will say grc.com, but unfortunately that domain is not available. I wish I
Oh.
had it. It's a company I think called Gibson Research uh, Consulting or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I really would like the grc.com because it's a little easier to say than Grand River Conference and much shorter to type. But I have that, and then I do a blog, and I various things that I put in the blog. I will post them on Facebook when I do that. But there's a lot of things back in the past few years in the blog too that people might be interested in as well.
Well, I was going to say, so I was on both today,
Right,
but I've been on them quite a bit last year. Um, the website's really cool because you have all the teams listed,
right,
all the schools, and then each sport, and
right,
then you can click on it and go right into scores or schedule or whatever.
right,
But then there is the history section. So I was on there reading about the history of the GRC, which I had read last year, but it was interesting to reread that
right,
again. Um, but the blog is cool too because you do have these weekly write-ups, and it's for every matchup. Like
right.
if we're talking about the football game, you'll have the power poll, but then you've got like a little recap from every one.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know how you have time to do all that, but
I've learned a lot of time management skills. I don't watch as much TV as people.
Mhm.
And so, it's just something where have my priorities, and this is one of my priorities, and I just make
Yeah.
sure I get it done.
Is your wife super supportive?
She is supportive of this. She doesn't go to the games,
Mhm.
but she is supportive. And maybe part of it is just, this is my passion, and she puts up with it, but but she has been supportive. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. We get to the end here, and we always give people an opportunity to say it with their chest, and it's something that my daughter, who probably watches way too much, YouTube and
Mhm.
Netflix and whatever, sometimes if I get to mumbling or something, she'll be like, "Say it with your chest, Dad," and that's where it kind of came from for
Yeah.
me. But what is something that you really stand behind, you want people to know about, and you wish got more coverage?
Well, I think I mentioned to you, I am a pastor of my church, so I'm a big follower of Jesus,
Hmm.
big follower of God. So that's also a big passion of my life, and I want to make sure that I don't what I'm doing. I want to make sure that I feel that it's God's will for me to do. I said I think this is a calling, and it's something, just the way it's all happened, is a calling for me. But I always want to make sure I'm in tune to what God's will is for me.
Wow, yeah. And what church is that?
A Community of Christ is the name of the church. So it's just outside of St. Joe. It's about 20 miles west or east of St. Joe.
And how
Yeah.
long have you been a pastor?
Since 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is another thing you're fitting into the
Yes.
schedule.
Yeah.
Is that just once a week for you, or are you
It's a
doing?
once a week. I mean, we're a small congregation, so it's once a week, and I have other people that also help me out with preparing services and doing sermons as well. I don't do it every week, but and when I get to the point where I'm doing every week, my wife tells me, try to get some other people to
Yeah.
help when she feels like I'm not.
I'm really glad you brought this up though, because um, I know in a previous episode I had mentioned or talked about, if you ever just feel like someone's talking to you, something is pushing you towards something in life, you really need to give it some attention,
Right,
because you never know when you're being led down that path that you need to be on.
right,
But sometimes you're also answering other people's prayers
right.
without even realizing it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, thanks.
Oh man, I really also, real quick shout out to Raspberries, which is part of the reason I
Mhm.
was able to snag you today, because um, Raspberries is a spot you like to frequent. Is that
Yes, it
true?
is. Yes.
They have very good barbecue, and I'm sure you've had, going to all these games. You probably had the opportunity to eat at quite a few places.
Yes.
Would you say that Raspberries is some of the best barbecue you've had?
Uh, it's really good. I love Kansas City barbecue
Well,
too, and
sure.
there's some really good places there. But I tell people, outside of Austin, Texas, and Kansas City, I would put it at the top.
Yes.
Uh, there my wife is she has some favorites too, and I haven't she's been wanting to eat at Raspberries, but I haven't had an occasion. I've been 6 times in the last year, and she hasn't eaten at all. And it's like, I told her I was going to Raspberries today, and she was like, okay, it's like, I said I'd bring you some back, but I have this interview after, and it might not be good.
Yeah, it's
So
not always the same, but
yeah,
my daughter works there, and she does bring home food when
yeah,
I ask her to purchase me the special for the night or whatever. Um, but I just wanted to bring that up because I just hope people realize that we are pretty fortunate in Brookfield. We have a number of really good places to
right.
eat. So if the high school sports teams are winning, and you get a stop at one of those restaurants on the way home, it's a win-win.
Right.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your
You're
time.
welcome.
I'm glad you came by. Was the jamboree fun today?
It was. I mean, got a lot of good pictures. Jamborees are always a little difficult to tell. Trenton did played very well in it, and I wasn't able to stay for the end of the Putnam Brookfield one, so I'm not sure who won, but
Mhm.
uh, I think there's some good teams in there. But jamborees are always hard to tell because
Yeah.
you don't always have maybe your best players in there the whole game. They really try to have some other players play. So
Right.
So, but it's always good to have it. It's good for the kids. But one of the things I always said about Jamboree is it helps get everybody else, media, scorekeepers, ADs, all those people, back in before an actual official game, so get the feel of it.
You got to get back in that rhythm,
Right.
of whatever it is you do. Like I do the music. It's always that first week. It's like, okay, are all the knobs turned to the right
Yeah.
spot? Are the settings right? Or is
Right.
my chord at? So that is a good opportunity for stuff like
Right.
that for, like you said, everybody.
Mhm.
Same with football. I thought the football one went really well last night. We both commented it goes really quick.
Right.
They played both ends, and you don't really use it as a judge for how the teams are going to
No.
be that year, but you
Yeah.
at least get to see some flashes of
Right.
skills and things. Well, it was great to see you there. Once again, thank you for coming by here.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
And that's it for us. If you would like to support the GRC, the page, he's never turning away sponsors. So if you want to be a part of that, reach out through the Facebook page is the best method.
Through the Facebook page, you can also send an email to me at jeremy.benson@grandriverconference.com. You can be reached there. I still have some other sponsorship opportunities that I haven't filled for the school year. I've filled most of them for the fall, but I still have some other opportunities if people are wanting to sponsor.
Yeah. Probably for the winter sports and
There's
stuff.
some for winter and spring, and then I have some that are just like I do all of these player of the year things for each team,
Yeah.
and then for the conference, and so that's one where I'm still looking for some sponsors for some of those as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, hopefully someone will see this and we'll get
Yeah.
those filled up.
Sounds good.
All right. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Come back next week. You don't know who we're going to have on this show. If there's somebody you'd like to see, you got to message me. Let me know about them.
That stuff matters. Oh yeah, it does. The little things, the big because. That stuff matters. That's the truth. We'll see you soon.